Welcome. We are so glad that you're here with us today. This is our July Lunch and Learn series, and we are going to return to a suburban garden that we have followed since winter. I'm Tammy Thompson, Outreach and Conference Manager for Deep Roots, and I am delighted to spend this next hour with you. Before I talk about today's topic and introduce our speakers, I wanted to give you a little bit. I'm going to share my screen again and give you a little background on who is behind Deep Roots and how we operate here. We have a lot of partners, and we are so thankful for them. First of all, we are incredibly grateful to the Alvin L. Gottlieb Foundation and the Missouri Department of Conservation for their generous sponsorship of this webinar series. And we are also so grateful to you for your support of our programs, our webinars, the feedback you give us, the surveys that you provide to us. We really couldn't do this without your support. This webinar will be recorded and up on the Deep Roots website by Monday. You'll also receive an email with the link to the recording and any resources that we're talking about today during the broadcast. So watch your email and our website. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll be notified each time we upload a video, whether it's Native Plants at Noon, whether it's a Lunch and Learn series, or whether we're uploading other things. So today, we return to a home garden that we have followed since winter. We wanted to see and show you the metamorphosis of a home garden over the seasons. And this season did not disappoint. This home garden looks completely different than our last broadcast, showing us that native plants offer us something new and exciting each season. So let's get this party started. During the program, if you have questions, please note those in the Q&A tool in Zoom, and we will get to as many of those as we can. And I'll be using the chat feature to send you links and references mentioned during the broadcast. With that, I am honored to introduce our speakers today. Alaine Hudlin is a wildlife education specialist with the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. She is also a dear friend to us at Deep Roots, and her knowledge is only outshined by her enthusiasm for nature. Kathy is our lovely homeowner who has graciously offered her garden for us to enjoy this year. Kathy is a self-taught native garden expert, and her enthusiasm and passion is a perfect match with Alaine. So now we are going to have Kathy and Alaine take it away.
Kathy, oh my
Hi,
God,
Elaine.
it's so good to see you. Oh, what a beautiful day we have for another wonderful
great.
visit. Your yard is amazing.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about that. Here we are, sort of on the street level. And so, Elaine, do I really want to see the street? No. And do I want to hear the street? No. But do I want to attract wildlife into my yard? Yes. Do I want it to look presentable so my neighbors won't think I'm a pariah? Yes. So I started with this, and these are annual sunflowers, Helianthus annum. And what I do for these, they just arrived here, I did not plant them, is probably tomorrow I'll cut it back at least this low, and then they won't be 15 feet tall. That is an homage to our neighbors. A couple of things.
Yeah.
I like it tall-ish to keep the dogs out. Why? Because if the dogs get in, everything will get trampled. I love dogs. I like to cut the asters back I like to collect the sunflowers back until July. And then here we have one of my most favorite but most aggressive plants. It's river oats. And you will love the blooms. When you see the blooms of the seed pods in the fall, you will really enjoy that. And then we have Baptisia and some Coreopsis, and there are some other things in here, but they aren't competing quite as well. I think I really wanted to get some Blazing Star established, but it was not aggressive enough to compete with this other. And if you look up the driveway, you can see the river oats, and that has been an ideal plant. If somebody wants to back up over them, so what? They really come back and they're just fine.
That's kind of nice, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah,
it
and
is.
It's a good cover for wildlife. I can see that, especially when you have young emerging juveniles.
Yes.
This is a good place to scurry
Well,
to.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
We have a little ragweed, annual ragweed, and one thing that people think is that goldenrod is an allergen, and the pollen from goldenrod is the problem for allergies, but actually it is this one.
It is all
So
ragweed.
I'm going to pull it out.
You know, and even we knew it was ragweed, didn't we? Just even coming up on it because of the leaf shape. So I always want people to remember, look at the observable characteristics and try and get it in a family, and then you can ID it later.
Okay.
I bet if we put pictures
If you don't have
to it,
the picture of this
yeah,
app.
I bet if we put picture of this to it, it would come right up as ragweed, because we know the leaf is going to tell us it's in the family. I will tell you, in areas that are more remote, ragweed, the seed has one of the highest fat contents
Oh, really?
for wildlife over winter. And ragweed is a good invader. It's one of those that establishes the soil.
In disturbed areas?
Yeah, to the point it can't grow, so it's putting nutrients and moisture back in, while it's also really good for wildlife.
Oh. What you're talking about here is another really uncommon front yard. Okay, so we have all that tall stuff over there. Who would think of having Joe Pyeweed in their front yard? Or, here we go, cliff goldenrod.
Right.
And I love the cliff goldenrod because these blooms are purple and they spill out. And then the goldenrod spills out over the wall. And then, you know, nothing can outcompete a little bit of gooseneck loosestrife.
Exactly.
So that was planted before I really realized what an invasive plant it is.
But look how, and that's what I wanted to point in here. Not only is this good wildlife cover, and I like your bold choice because we're up on a rock ledge and it's really adding good height. Some people are afraid of the taller plants, but look at that understory that it's creating, almost like a woodland understory, which is going to have a hard time competing.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Right,
In
so-
another area of the yard where there isn't, where it's a new kind of meadow and doesn't have this competitor, this is out competing everything else.
See, so
I didn't think of that,
bold
Elaine.
choice, but I love it.
Well, it is bold, and if you think that's bold, oh, see, here's some more.
Yep, here it is.
Gooseneck
But look at
loosestrife.
the stark difference. So here you've got basically like a woodland canopy cover, and here you don't. Although it has a taller story canopy, it's still getting that early morning light.
Right.
This is taking that early morning light.
Elaine, if you thought that the Joe Pyeweed was bold, how about having cup plant in your front yard?
love it.
Well, I went to a plant sale, 15 years ago, and I planted that cup plant. And I am here to tell you, I didn't really know that much about it. I stuck it here, and I didn't know it was really tall, like 14 feet sometimes, 12 feet.
I know, but look at that.
But it collects water in the juncture of the leaves on the stem, and that's why it's called a cup plant, and it has really pretty yellow flowers at the top. It's in the same family as compass plant.
Well, and as it's holding that water,
For the animals, they can drink.
not only can they
Birds.
drink, but some of your smaller frogs, if it's in a wet enough
Oh,
time.
I didn't know that.
So this is a really good thing. Yeah, as long as they're not getting a toxin in there. And one
No,
of the
we do
things
not
that
spray.
yeah, one of the things that happens is having that water evaporating at a little bit faster rate helps that tadpole and other insect larvae to mature faster.
This was one of my first plantings in this front yard, and it's Amsonia, or Eastern Bluestar.
But
And
it looks so similar to so many different
It does.
plants. And you know, let's just try the app.
Okay.
Plant this
Okay.
on it. Because I know we've got the seed pods, and the flower can
The
be a
seed
dead
pods
giveaway.
are right here.
Yeah, aren't those cool?
I love the seed
I
pods.
know, they look like little peppers to me.
Yeah,
little
they do.
long peppers. But let's try this, because sometimes it could be so many different plants to me. So if I don't shake a lot, good luck with that. It's the reason I wasn't a surgeon.
Oh, there
There
we go.
you go. It came up without the bloom or the seed pod.
And it
Love
has really pretty pale bloom flowers on it. And the reason I wanted you to look at it is because it still holds its structure in the summer and throughout the fall. And actually, I let it stand until the early spring and cut it back then.
Yeah, because we saw some earlier plants. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They start to tip over a little bit, and some people may not like that. But
Yeah.
when you can get these that can do good cover,
Yeah.
but are strong enough to stand upright longer, that's great.
Yep, I think they're pretty cool. And then up here, ta-da!
Yay!
I started with one tiger lily. And this is a native plant, and it's surrounded by, there's some mountain mint over there, there's a lot of penstemon, there are asters, goldenrod, all of that. But this,
I love it.
absolutely, look at these
I
seeds.
know, aren't they
It
cool?
multiplies prolifically.
It is so, and what a beautiful, stunning bloom.
Yeah, I think the way they hang down in a pendulum sort of way is lovely. And the bloom time, especially with all these offspring, lasts for a month.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, I think they're really cool.
I do too. I just love them. Stunning. And another one that, although it's taller, it's holding up well
Yes.
as a taller plant.
Well,
And it does
I'm glad
great
you like it.
blockage for your house.
Yeah.
Looking from this angle.
It's another good screen, maybe what you would call a bold choice.
A
Another good
bold-
one.
Yep, I'm going to go bold choice.
And then here's another one that I really like. It's called Culver's Root or Veronicastrum. It's past prime, but you can see a little bit of the white blooms at the top. And this is a great alternative to the same shape as purple loosestrife, which has those candelabras. It's a great alternative.
I like it. It doesn't seem very aggressive.
No, it clumps.
Yeah.
I planted some blue stem here just because I thought it shouldn't be all river oats.
Yeah, let's see
That's
how
a
it goes.
this year one. You know, it's a little shady here, but really in the noon sun it gets pretty good coverage. And then there's some purple coneflower at the back.
And it will be interesting to watch this plant as it goes through its cycles. It's going to get that afternoon sun, and that's
Yeah.
the hotter sun, so that's good to see with so much early morning cover how well it
Right.
does. And that might go to those individuals that think that something is full sun,
Yeah.
that you can watch and see if it adapts, because
Right.
so many plants are more edge plants
Yes.
than we give them credit
And
for.
and that could be an edge plant here because there's other tall things. And this tree is a river birch, and it is a native, and as you can see, it's declining, which makes me really sad.
Well, I wish trees had
Forever lives.
Yes.
Bur oaks, 900 years.
Yes. But a lot of trees, 100, 125 years, can be a really good life. And if you think that what type of parasites can come in, if it gets lightning strikes, if it's one of the taller ones. So the fact that they can live that long.
Well, it's about 45 years old. Okay, let's come up through this little path.
Oh,
It's
little.
kind of, it is little.
It
The-
was so open
the-
this spring,
the
Kathy, I could
postman
barely
is-
find the rocks.
The postman is glad it's here. And if you recall, we looked at the ginger and it was so tiny, and we looked at the marybells or the uvula and we could hardly find them.
Well, you were worried about him
Yeah.
coming up. That was one of your comments is, I think
Yep.
they're in here. They should be in here. So
But
you
they're
see-
here, and you can see what a great ground cover it is.
It is an excellent ground.
And then you can see that the sensitive fern didn't like it very much when it was hot, and that's one of the problems with sensitive fern. It can look a little
Well, I am with the sensitive
shaggy,
fern.
but I love the sensitive fern.
What was with these 90-degree temperatures in June?
I know.
What?
This is called Virginia waterleaf, and I love it. Sort of a lavender to pink to white bloom, and it does seed too.
Yeah,
I
I
dug
love
this up
those.
in an area where it was in the grass, and
Oh, and
I
they're
asked
kind
them
of
if I could dig it up, and they said sure.
You know,
So,
and I love the feel of that.
yeah,
They're a little more.
yeah, no, they're fuzzy.
Yeah, that's fun.
Pretty cool. So we'll have more of those next year to see. Okay, we've got some goldenrod, and there's more goldenrod and more goldenrod. That I think is swamp goldenrod, and right ahead of us up here, staked to keep it out of the path, is purple goldenrod. And this is one of my favorites, and it's already bloomed, obviously. You can see the seed pods. And all that sort of ovate leaf is Pachyra. There's an odd black-eyed Susan over there that I'm going to dig up. Well, I might leave it there.
You know what? If it's made that bold choice,
Yeah, yeah,
let it
yeah. And this is the bane of my existence, the Bradford pear, which keeps on giving. And if you can see all these cuts, and you can see the ones with blue on them, right there, though they have kept coming back. Here's some more.
I know, but
Those cuts were yesterday, and they get, you know, they grow into a tree. They're absolutely awful, and they keep coming back. This Bradford pear sends out more shoots from the roots than the one down there, and I think it's because we left that Bradford pear at about 6 feet until the spring when we could come back and cut it down lower, and so it has not kept regenerating as much as this one. Oh, it's terrible.
Well, it's just a good one to remind ourselves.
But
that we have to
Elaine,
stick at it.
you're right. Look at the little
Oh,
pussy toes.
Exactly.
And they still
They're
look
coming
good.
over it.
And the Pachyra looks good. And there
Yeah.
always is an oak tree
And
trying
look
to
how
come
they're
up.
starting to take in. So hopefully you keep up your good cutting skills. Quite impressive.
Well,
And I think, you know, you're going to win the fight.
well, as it fills in, the whole idea is green mulch. Don't have to mulch with anything. The purple poppy mallow, the Callirhoe.
Yeah, I love
I love that.
mallows. I just love them.
What's that tree that has the purple berries? It's really cool.
Like the mulberry you're talking
no,
about?
No, it's beautyberry.
Oh, beautyberry. Yeah. Well, you know, and I was just looking at your elderberry. I was like, oh, I'm seeing so many of them. So that's a lot of fun.
Well, we have, those just came up too. But I liked them there, and it gives some privacy for that window and shading in the summer, so.
And there goes one of your hawks, just flew
Where's the
over.
hawk?
Yep, there it is. Oh, and you know, I have not seen one squirrel.
Well,
They're doing their
I have
job.
to tell you, they are doing their job.
Yeah, that's great.
In our bedroom, you could always hear them running on the roof, and now they. Oh,
Do you
listen.
hear the call?
Yes. Listen. I think it has young.
It does. If you said you saw three, and pretty soon what you're going to hear, and I don't know about you, but when I hear the feeding call of the young redtail, and then it gets desperate
What does
when
it
mom and
sound
dad,
like?
well, they, yes,
Yeah.
and then they get worrisome because mom and dad, birds go to school, like we go to school, mammals and birds go to school, and so when the parents say we've done our job, the young are like ours, you know, they've kicked them out of the nest, and they're like, no, I don't want to go, and I just want to. I don't know. I want to go get a rabbit and run out and feed it.
You know, our neighbor saw the little one with a mouse the other day in its mouth, and saw the adult with a snake.
Oh, there you go. See, isn't that is great. Doing their job.
Yeah.
That's that balance.
Yeah.
We're all seeking balance.
Well, but
They've
you
got a great
have to
job.
create this habitat, right?
Yes.
And there is the golden currant, and this verbena is really happy here. And then that stachyus or lamb's ear moved over from my neighbor's garden over there. This elderberry is a little low, but it still has berries on it, and I don't cut it back until the berries are gone.
Good for you.
So we have to
Thank you.
kind of go through this secret garden and get in here.
I just love how the natives are offering you so much shade.
Yeah,
into
they
your
do.
house. That is wonderful.
Thanks. Yeah, it is really great. And then we have this gray twig dogwood,
Yes, let's do the
which we
magic
were
leaf.
looking at
Yes.
before.
Yeah, I
And
really want to get
you
this.
wondered if it was, go ahead, you do it. You're
Yeah.
better at it than I
Well,
am.
And everybody, so sometimes, especially if it's young and it's tall and you're not sure, is it Japanese bush honeysuckle, is it dogweed? Sometimes you can feel the leaf and you say, oh, that's roughly dogweed. But the fibers in the dogweed
Dogwood?
wood leaf should let you know. Now, this is great for kids because it's
Oh,
the magic
cool.
leaf test. So do this for your grandkids. Oops, I didn't do a good job here. because they can fly.
See, the fibers are still connected even when
Yeah.
you,
So
that is so cool.
your Japanese bush honeysuckle, it may have the main stem fiber, but it will not have
The side
these others.
fibers.
So that's one that a good one, if you're not sure, am I dealing with Japanese bush honeysuckle or a dogwood, you can do that magic leaf test.
Well, this has really nice berries,
Mm-hmm.
and it also has beautiful blooms. After the Cornus florida, which is the ornamental dogwood that we think about that's native, that is a woodland plant, and this is also suckering. And so I did not plant this here; it just came up, and I love the screen it does. Listen, do you hear it?
Yep, it's right there up on the pole.
Oh, there it is. Get it. It's right up there on the. You can see how big it is.
And we really need to thank our power companies because do you notice how they've put up on the pole, they make it safe for those birds to land.
Yeah.
We used to get so many electrocuted hawks and owls, it was sad. They came in and they've really done their job to make these poles more safe for them because they're wonderful perches.
Look how
Yeah.
big they are.
Yeah,
Can
I
you
hope
tell
he
if that's
calls
the
again.
male or the female?
In birds of prey, the female are larger, and so it's really good to see them side by side. Sometimes if you can see the plumage well, then you can tell if it's juvenile to adult, kind of what phase it's in. But on some birds of prey, you've got to see the pair side by side because the females are larger than the males.
So the smaller one of the three that we've seen is the juvenile.
Yes, and then the next smaller would be the male, and the tallest, the biggest, would be the female. Absolutely right. And to have one offspring is really good because this is a harsh environment. Oh my gosh, Kathy, I'm sorry, but I got to interrupt you. What in the world? That is
Well,
stunning.
this is a bottlebrush buckeye. It's a native. The bees love it.
There's bees everywhere. Hello, little bees. Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah, and we also have a little pond here right next to it, and it blooms this time of year, and it's got some elderberry right next to it.
Oh, it's great.
Before that bloomed, there were some calycanthus and a number of other things over there, but it's all about creating an area that's happy for wildlife.
And this is the bottlebrush buckeye that you were talking about earlier. That
Yes.
You said we've got to see the blooms, and you're absolutely right. That is spectacular. I want to go up and smell the flowers, but I don't want to disturb the bees.
Well, I know it. Well, it does. They do smell good, and so do the elderberry, actually.
Yes.
And there's some bottlebrush buckeye over there that you can see hasn't bloomed yet, and it's very narrow and thin, and then it's hard to imagine how much it brushes out. So we have sensitive fern here. We have some Solomon seal, which is a native plant. There we go.
Oh yeah.
And then there are this Celandine Poppy.
Smell it. I smell it.
Yeah, can you smell it now?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, it does smell really nice.
Wow.
And there's a whole border of Celandine
Yeah.
Poppy over there.
And I see, so the vines are coming up that we talked about
Yep.
last time.
This is another level of the garden that I don't know if we really looked at much, but I'd like to point out these native hydrangeas, which I have in a variety of spots. Hi, Mr. Hawk.
Yes, look at it looking at us.
I know.
They're like, go away, you're disturbing.
And there's one over there you can see at the back of the garden,
yeah.
and that is fully in bloom. Where
That's
these,
taller.
yes, it is because it's in the sun.
But see,
The bees love it.
They do?
They love it. Look at the ornamental hydrangeas, the Annabelles, the ball hydrangeas. I have one of those back there. Never any bees on it.
Isn't that interesting?
But unlike the hosta you pointed out,
Well, and it just goes to show you that, again, that depth of flower.
Mm-hmm.
If they're really deep, then some bees, if they don't have the longer tongue, it's going to be more difficult.
right.
And so that's one of those that's really good.
I love hearing the hawk.
I do too. And I love seeing, what I think is fun is seeing the different songbirds that
Yes.
are landing on the wire next to him.
Yeah, who knows?
Not
Maybe they
worried.
know he's already eaten today.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, a variety of things in here. That's goldenrod. That is what's it called? Palm sedge, ferns. Isn't that fun? Do you know what? We used to have wood strips, cedar strips between the concrete on our terrace, and you know it rotted out after a while.
Sure.
And so stuff is growing in it now, like violets and things like that. But what I'd like to do is transplant some of this moss down there in between the pavers,
Absolutely.
because I think it would
Isn't
look
it
cool.
cool?
Yeah, I
Oh,
like it.
It is cool.
Yeah, I like it. It's soft, and
Yeah,
this
it's
is where the
adorable.
kids used to play basketball. And before that, it was a play area with sand and a swing, and you know, a little playhouse and all that stuff.
I just love the smells.
Yeah, it does smell good.
Oh,
But the hypericum, I think, is really beautiful. And there it is with some more elderberry. And the bees love it.
Yeah, all the life that's just buzzing around and flying around and calling.
Do you know when you go to a greenhouse, I always look for the plants that attract the bees.
Well, and I'm so excited to see your trumpet vine
Oh,
for the
the
hummingbird.
trumpet vine is so cool. Okay, well, here we come back out
Ah, it's so
to the
fun.
front.
Yeah, I love.
The cool oasis in the back and a little more sun in the front.
It's amazing how you feel out when you're still in your yard.
Well, thank you.
I could be way out there. This is so
Well,
much fun.
I
It's
grew
all
up in the
that makes it.
country, and I really like that feeling of country.
Oh, looks fantastic.
Oh,
I know
thanks.
it's always a work in progress. And
well,
you've got
you
a few
don't
things
have to do that much. I don't spray. The only spray I use, as I said before, is Hillary Noonan with Syntax, and she sprays to make the soil good.
Well, and
The maculatum, the beneficial bacteria, and all of that.
I am still amazed at how many people forget the starting
All
point,
starts
which
with
is the
dirt.
soil.
Yep.
And then they're wondering why things don't. We talked about that last time. But if you don't check your soil, you may be putting the entirely wrong plant in the area. We think about sun exposure. We think about water amounts. We think about wind, like if something's going to topple on. But we don't think about the very
It's really
basic
important.
start,
It's
which
where
is
it all
the soil.
starts.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, I'd like to remind you about something.
Oh,
And here's my garden
oh,
bag right
I
here.
see it. You know,
And
we supplied
That
those.
is Planet
Oh.
Native.
This was our first conference, and how fun was that?
It
You
was
and I
so
got to help
great.
you with hospitality.
Yeah.
Boy, did we have a great time. But we learned so much. That's where I got my,
Oh, that's where you. I have
Yes.
two of those. I have one that
Yes.
says Joe Piley.
and I hear that they are going to be back again
They will be
at
back.
this conference. You and I were talking before about how much we learned at these
Well,
conferences.
You know, you might get a few favors that are useful, but I have to say that I learned so much from every conference. I've been to fourth conference, and the first one was in person. The next two were virtual, and this one will have a hybrid feel because there's going to be field trips before that will be really fun, and then incredible speakers and opportunities to hear people you haven't heard maybe ever, and you would never get to hear ever because you'd have to travel, and it's very inexpensive to come. There's an early
Oh,
bird discount,
And I think enroll. We can start signing up next month.
I think in July
yeah, I
the
think-
sign up will
so I'm
begin.
going to go there.
And
first
it's
thing.
the second week in September, and it will be incredible.
It will.
The best thing about it is, though, can't come for a day, can't decide which track
Oh,
to
I
listen
know.
to. They
sometimes
record
will.
them all, and you
Okay,
can
yeah, that's
listen
right.
to them for a whole year. And I can't tell you how many times I have gone
I
back.
do too.
Yes.
Because you always learn
Yeah.
something new.
Yeah.
Isn't it great?
And or you forget a fact and you want to check it, and you can go back and listen. So
that's
for the
fun.
cost, you could travel someplace and you'd pay 8 times as much for a conference like this that is useful for you.
Right. I got to
for
say,
years.
as much as I really hated COVID, some great things came out, and that is that it forced us
Yes.
to try new things that we were reluctant, kind of
Yeah.
like our plants. You're reluctant to try it, right? It's only a mistake if you you don't learn from it, then it's a failure because you failed to learn. So try it. You tried some things that have taken over, so you're cutting them back. But one thing I love about this virtual in-person is we do get to explore so many different areas, and we get to tap into so many different minds with great information.
Right. And the partners from Deep Roots, the presenting organization, have been looking for the best speakers in the country, and so that's what you'll get.
I think, when you all ask for feedback, what I really appreciate is you all listen.
Thank you.
Well, sometimes you're thinking, why do you ask for my feedback? Because absolutely nothing has changed.
Well, how much you can learn from others, and there's a lot for landscape architects, particularly this year, because we know that there's not enough design expertise in our area.
I agree.
And so this is a start, and a low-cost start that can be used at your convenience to fit it into your schedule, even on the weekends, a rainy weekend. Listen to 45 minutes of something pretty stimulating.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm excited.
So I will see you at the conference.
Yes, you will. I know. Well, it's fun. Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon.
Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you.
I think Elaine is on here too somewhere. That was great. That was absolutely so much fun. Seeing it again, I mean, I was there live too, but seeing it again was so, it was just a lot of fun. It looked like a completely different from spring. Completely different. All right. Well, we do have a couple of questions. And before we get into our questions, Val actually asked a great question. We did misspeak. That's not purple goldenrod, right? It was purple milkweed.
It was purple milkweed, and all in there was milkweed. And I misspoke. I even put it in the chat. No, it's not.
We get excited.
It's swamp milkweed and mostly swamp milkweed and purple milkweed.
Perfect. Well,
my bad.
That's okay. We all do it. So Val's one of our tried and true question askers. She asks, don't you have river oats crowding others out? And we talked about that, didn't we? The river oat.
No, you have to watch it. And I dig it out and give it away to people or compost it. There was a big 4th of July celebration that I helped put on this past weekend, and I just came in and I grabbed big swatches of it and cut it, and that was the arrangements. And you can cut it back to make open spaces, but if you don't want to do that every year, you just have to dig it out, and it's not easy to dig out either. Well, I mean, it's not the hardest to dig it out, but she's absolutely right.
Yeah, I love the idea of using it as an arrangement, because
it's fabulous.
Yeah, you're slowing it down in the growing season, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it really was. They look like fireworks.
Yeah,
there were 2 American flags there, and it looked like fireworks coming up.
I'm always looking for my thrillers in my flower arrangements, those tall, sturdy things. Okay, Barbara asks, how do you keep trumpet vine from taking over the entire yard?
Great question.
Another great question.
You don't let the seed pods erupt. You cut off the seed pods as you go, and then when you see the little seedlings below, if you've missed some, and I know I have trumpet vine in the seed bank, and I just dig it up and I keep after it. That one never has the seed pod set seed.
Okay.
Because it would broadcast everywhere.
So when is it that you're cutting those off? When do they usually?
When you see them.
Okay, about into summer, like now?
Whenever they appear. I don't have any seed pods yet.
Okay.
But I just take scissors and cut them off. It's in a balcony, so it's easy to cut them off. I have to kind of reach around the back for some of it. Sometimes you have to get out a ladder, but I'm really pretty careful about that.
Perfect.
Very good question.
That is.
Well, if I could step in real quick too, I think that's a good point to make on any plant that you don't want. You've got to stop that seed bank. And I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but I have things going to seed at different times than before with these changing weather patterns. Things are changing up. And so I'm having to go back and check things multiple times because things are, some are early, some are late. You just, you have to keep checking. And I think that's so important. Cutting it off that seed pod is the quickest, easiest way. If you don't have any other time, stop that seed bank thing. So that's good. And I don't know if anybody else has. Kathy, do you mow? You know, keeping the area mowed around where that vine is going up is really important too, because it's easier to get that to stop coming up if it stays.
There's nowhere to mow there. It kind of grows up from the shade into the sun. So there's nowhere really to mow. It's all kind of, full woodland like. But for the river oats, I don't let the ones go to seed that are near the areas where I don't want them to spread more. And it's kind of breaks my heart because I think they look really pretty, but you have to choose sometimes.
Great tip. Michelle asks, where is the garden located? The general area.
Fairway.
And so Anita asks, and I think both of you can answer this, but Anita asks, what app is she using for plant identification? But Elaine, I want you to tell them about the Merlin app because it's blowing my mind too. So talk about both of them that you guys used. Oh, you're muted, Elaine.
Kathy, why don't you talk? Yeah, can you hear me now? Yes. Sorry, I'm actually doing a YMCA camp, and so I'm doing adaptations, putt, and all these other things. I'm stepping out to do this, so I apologize. But Kathy, how about if you talk about the plant ID one? I know we've mentioned a couple times. It is fantastic. And then when you're done with that explanation, I'll jump into the Merlin app.
Okay, well, the one that I use is called Picture. Can you see that? Or that's pretty hard to see.
We'll send a link to the app store.
Well, it's Picture This, and there's a little camera on it, and you just take a picture of it, and then this clouded thing comes down, and then it says, poof, this is it. And most of the time it's right. I have tested it on a couple of things and that it missed. But if you're out and about and you're wondering what something is, or another really useful application for this is in the seedling stage when it's hard to tell what it is because it hasn't bloomed. It really is a help when you're weeding or you can't remember what you planted.
Exactly.
That happens to me all the time. Anyway, I think there is a cost to it, and it does take a phone that isn't ancient like mine was. And I had to get a new phone to get it to work. But
what drives us to get
the cell towers weren't supporting my phone either, so don't feel sorry for me. It nudged me to do something I needed to do.
So Elaine, tell us about Merlin.
Yeah, and let me make a quick note too about that, the plant app. I find it interesting. I tried it, I think, sorry guys, I didn't hear all the webinar. I'm kind of running, but I tried it at home on my jewel weed, and I have yellow and I have orange. But when I did it without the bloom, it's all coming up orange. And Kathy's got another plant, so we're going to compare and see if that's just a color morph, and so the app really isn't distinguishing because it's simply a color morph, it's the same plant, or if it comes up a little bit different. It still gets you that plant, but maybe not more specifics. So I'll let you know. This is one of my research things. I am a research ecologist, and so I want to go back once they're blooming and do the blooms and see if it comes up distinguished or if it's calling the yellow orange.
Right, and in addition to the ID, you can take a deeper dive and learn more about the plant.
And just get close. Yeah.
that is, it's a great, boy, I mean, we had it so rough years ago. This is really spoiling us, and I'm loving it personally. The Merlin app. So you guys, I am like the worst. I can see a bird silhouette. And when you look at goldfinch, there can be over 2,400 different color morphs in their feather pattern. So that's why birders tend to get really nerdy, because there's so much that can go on. You have to really stay up on it, and false IDs are going to happen. But this app will help you. So I tried this app out on sounds. I don't know about you all, but I know general sounds, but then we can have over 400, what was it? I believe we've had 480 different species of birds that have occurred in Kansas. We have 3 different flightways. So it's depending on where you're at, you can get different things. We get vagrants. So vagrants are birds that come in from other areas. Maybe it's a cinnamon teal, should be more west, but it's coming to Kansas with some green or blue-winged teal. And you're thinking, what is that bird? Merlin app has been a really good resource, because you can do 2 things. You can do the picture ID like the plant, but it also does the bird call. And I don't know about you all, but I have a hard enough time remembering my name, let alone bird calls. And so this has, right, you know, when you're running all the time, it's like, oh my gosh. So this has been a huge help. And when you record the calls, so you can step out of your house, you can turn it on in the morning, it's going to record and catch all the different bird calls that it can pick up in that area, and then it saves that recording. One of the fun things I really enjoy too is that when the bird is calling, then it's highlighting. So you might have a list of 12 birds, but the second that bird is calling, it's highlighting that bird. So I had a summer tanager that was seemed just a little different, and I kept thinking, what is that? And I thought, is this a doggone mockingbird, right? Those little suckers. I thought, is this a mockingbird that's doing a call? Because I had a mockingbird do a spitting image call of a Mississippi kite. Now this was about 20 years ago, and I thought, we don't have Mississippi kites in this part of Kansas yet. What in the world is going on? And then I followed the sound to find out that it was a mockingbird. And what I have found is that Merlin, the app, has been able to better distinguish those mockeries. So to let you know, is that the bird or isn't it? So that's been saved me a lot of running around trying to look at a bird in foliage. That's not easy. So
Not, and it's really a neat, it's a free app, at least the one I'm using is free, and it's out of Cornell. Yeah, the university. So you just blew my mind when you recommended that app, because I've been using it since we recorded, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, Cornell, we have some great resources locally with Burroughs Audubon and the Missouri River Bird Observatory, and then this incredible national resource with Cornell Ornithology. All kinds of different things you can do with all these groups. So if you're interested in birds, there's no shortage of opportunity to learn more.
So we have another question.
And they do such a good job. Oh, can I make a real quick comment? Because I saw a comment, sorry you guys, but I did see about seeing the kites near the Discovery Center. We're getting those. A couple of years ago, we had some injured merlins coming in to rehab centers. And so we are getting, that is one of the cool things about this. And some of these weather patterns, I mean, maybe they got blown off course, that can always happen, but some of them are expanding their territories. And so it's a lot of fun. Yeah, years ago, we wouldn't have seen kites. Now it can be possible. So that's just a lot of fun.
That is a lot of fun. So the next question's a really good one. Can you talk about the loose strife? I thought the purple one was an invasive species, and that's a great question because Kathy, I'll let you take that one.
Well, purple is really invasive, and years ago, maybe as recently as 10, the waterways and wetlands in Minnesota were just encroached terribly. I don't think gooseneck loosestrife has that same problem in that it doesn't spread from one part of my yard to another, but it is an invasive plant in that it takes over. it can outcompete other things unless you put other things of equal competitive value in there with them. You'll find yourself digging it out, and it has runners and spreads that way, not by seed.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that it's not being sold on the Kansas side, that purple. I believe on the Missouri side, it still is being sold.
You should never plant purple loosestrife. If you care about our wetlands at all, even if you don't live around them, the birds, everything can take them, the wind. I mean, all you have to do is look at Bradford pears in the spring and know how horrible the spreading of plants that take over.
The unintended consequences. We just don't know.
Yeah, right.
Here's another question for you, Kathy. Do you ever water?
Yes, I did have to water, particularly at first. That area that we went through that looked sort of with the elderberry, and we kind of had to duck down, used to have those 2 Bradford pears in it, and it went from shade to sun like that. And I do have an irrigation system. We're gone sometimes part of the year, and because of that, it was just a more economical thing to do than to hire somebody to water everything by hand. And I do water occasionally. In this drought, this excessive heat warning time, I have used the irrigation system some, but not nearly what you would have to do if you had non-native species.
For sure.
New things need to be watered to get established for probably the first 3 years, in my experience.
And Claire asked, oh, go ahead.
Oh, can I just jump in? Sorry, you guys, just to jump in on this. But one of the things when you're talking about irrigating, and doing xeriscape and all of that, one of the things that I would recommend to people, and I do this all the time, and if the event is going on July 10th, this would be a perfect time. The Steep Roots having the event July 10th out at a native area. If they are, or find a native area, you guys take a hula hoop and throw the hula hoop out into a native area and catalog what plants are in that hula hoop area, and then throw it out again in the same basic area and start to see patterns of plants that are together.
Oh, how
and that, yeah, it's an easy way to see, and it stops a lot of these guys. Should I water? Shouldn't I water? Should I put this here? I just literally, I am not a guru at this. I let the plants talk to me. I always tell people, plants are screaming at you. They're telling you what's going on in your area if you're listening. Of course, verbiage is a little hard, but so throwing that hula hoop out and starting to realize if that area looks healthy, throw the hula hoop out in several different areas, catalog your plants, start to make those connections, because that's what prairie plants are doing. They're making those connections. They're helping each other out by nutrient or moisture level in the soil. Perhaps they're helping shade one and the other. These are all things to look at. They're also going to tell you that if they're together, then you can test that soil.
Yeah.
And that's going to help you figure out what soil they go in better. And does your soil help match that soil? And there's some really simple, easy soil tests, or you can take it into the extension service and get a more thorough soil test done. But this will really help you kind of figure out those partnerships and those relationships in those native areas. And then you can try it out in your own yard. And it may work, may not, but that's part of the fun for me, is then why, and go back and figure out, was the soil, was it water? Is there a clay pack here? Doesn't it not drain well? That sort of thing. So,
and I've done that same thing. You recommended that hula hoop, and I have a small, like 3.5 acre prairie. And I've done that same thing where I've looked at just a very small area, and I've noticed that they're like triplets, 3 plants that like the same spots. So they'll always grow next to each other. And then ragweed grows around all of it. But anyway, and that's okay. That's okay. We do have two more questions I want to get to before we start to close out. Claire asks, did I see hollyhock? If so, do you do anything special with the seeds? And she says, I love your plants, but do you have any issue with deer? The deer are a real problem in my neighborhood.
You know, I'll start with the deer. We have only had a deer in our yard one time, and it was actually it was a buck. And we have a fence all around the backyard, and it was in the backyard. It's not a fancy fence, it's a chain link fence, but my husband came out and jumped the fence, and that was the last I saw of deer.
Yeah.
So we do not have a big deer problem. Squirrels, chipmunks, rabbits, yeah, I mean, they're all living here. Possums, raccoons, things like that. Don't bother the garden as much as deer, but I think that local growers of native plants can steer you in some good direction about what's not appealing to deer. And I would recommend that. As far as the hollyhocks go, there used to be a big stand of hollyhock at the Shawnee Indian Mission near where I live. And so I took some seeds and I spread them around, and this was probably 20 years ago. And this year they were in the seed bank and they came up in two places. I didn't do anything with them, but I know they're from the mission because they're single bloom, not those double bloom that I don't care for quite so much.
We talked about those too on the tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Must have been edited out. We had talked about a lot of good stuff on that tour. So Elaine, let's touch on that deer question. I know I leave some ragweed in my prairie because they like it, and I like to leave it kind of on the edge. But they're browsers, so I don't have experience with anything a deer really won't nibble on, but you would know.
Right. Well, you know, unfortunately, I wish I had some bulletproof plants to give you all, but you're right, they're browsers, and they're really good jumpers. You know, they can leap 8 feet, so a 6-foot high fence isn't going to stop them. They can jump up to 30 feet in a distance, so they've really got some great adaptations to get them in places, and their job is to trim and prune in that natural society. That's their job. We prune our bushes and our trees, that's their job. Only they do browse on a lot of different plants. So sometimes it's like the squirrels at the feeders. The more you do to try and avoid them, the worse it is. Some people have had some luck and people chime in if this works, but they now have some sound devices that have work that are on motion. But if you've got dogs, it could be a problem, or a cat. Those have kind of worked just to get them off. I recommend a dog. Fence the area and get you a dog, because they're going to chase the deer out. That's what we have. Although I do find even up near the house, Marvel obviously isn't the superhero I thought he would be, because I find places where the deer are at, but I'm going to give him a break and think that's when he's not out in the yard. You know, because any of those spray deterrents that you put on, they will work temporarily, but they're either going to lose virility over time or get washed off. So while some of those will work and you can find good recipes for your own non-toxic ones to make up, just remember you are going to have to reapply them on a regular basis. Other than that, if anybody else has any great ideas, I'm always open to learn.
Yeah, pop those in the chat and we'll share them.
Yeah.
Okay, we have one last question, and I think we're right on time. And I don't know the answer to this. Gloria says, I love white bottle brush Buckeye. Can you let us know where to buy it?
I think I got that at Soil Service.
Okay.
And it's great. It does sucker. You know, another plant that's native, if you like the white bottle brush Buckeye, you might also like the red Buckeye, which is more of a shrub tree, gets up to 20 feet, I think. You can tell those bottle brush Buckeye are pretty big. So
they're beautiful. They're beautiful. Well, ladies, I so appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and start closing out. So I'll share my screen. You're welcome to stay on. but I want to go ahead and honor everyone's time. So before we go today, we want to thank Elaine and Kathy. Elaine for sharing her wisdom and enthusiasm, Kathy for doing the same and sharing her home. We so appreciate that. We want to give away a prize. We've started doing that, and we would love for you all to participate. And thanks for those of you hanging in. Our prize is an eight pack of native plant note cards by local artist Nancy Waugh. They are lovely and they are treasured by those who receive them. So here's the quiz question. Who plans to register for Planet Native this year? We will draw a random name right after I finish. I'm going to let Jahida is going to do the little wheel of fortune for us while I close out. So speaking of Planet Native, we would like to draw your attention to our upcoming events on our website. Registration for Planet Native Landscapes Conference begins next week. We have a great conference this year. We have incredible keynote speakers. We're doing a hybrid event, which includes an exhibit and social hall that first night. And that's going to be at Boulevard Brewing Company. Then the next day, so that's Monday, on Tuesday of that week, we are going to have different field trips. And then the virtual conference will be Wednesday through Friday. Great speakers, great field trips, and we get an opportunity to actually see our exhibitors. So we're really excited about it. Registration opens this coming week. And so we really would love for you all to be a part of it. We also want to tell you about Native Plants at Noon, which is every third Thursday of the month. And we are going to return to the Anita B. Gorman Discovery Center next week with Alex and Sydney. I know many of you love to follow that. All of our events and webinars are on our website, on our screen right here at www.deeproots.org/events. While you're on our website, if you would consider making a donation, we would be grateful. So Jahida, who do we have as our winner? Just send it to me. Marcia Baumgartner is our winner. Marcia, if you would send me an email at tammy@deeprootskc.org with an address where we can mail those cards, I would really appreciate it. So for the rest of you, we'd love to see you next or 2 weeks for Native Plants at Noon. And thank you for joining us today. We will see you soon. Take care.